Will Aaron Rodgers play in 2025? Welcome, football fans, to another NFL Daily on Bleacher Report. I'm Mitch, and I'm here to break down the landing spots for Aaron Rodgers, the bad man, and the all-time great quarterback, future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time. And personally, I think Aaron Rodgers is slipping under the radar as a potential signing at the quarterback position. I don't really think he's getting the respect he deserves. Oftentimes, a quarterback gets a little bit older and he gets disregarded. But we're going to talk about why Aaron Rodgers maybe is being a little undervalued, and we're going to break down the teams that I think would fit him best and the teams that should be in the market for Aaron Rodgers this offseason. Now, first of all, guys, we just had some breaking news, so I would be an absolute jabroni to not discuss it, okay? The Las Vegas Raiders were going to be one of the teams on this list. They were going to be one of the teams. They were actually my favorite team for Aaron Rodgers in terms of maybe realistically it happening, but Geno Smith has been traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, guys. Geno Smith, the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, that Geno Smith, who once played for Pete Carroll, a third-round pick for Geno Smith. And it makes perfect sense for the Raiders. They have the 6th pick in the draft. They're not really in a range to take potentially the quarterback that they would like at that spot. They would have to take significant capital to move up into a spot where they would get the quarterback they would want, or maybe they just would not get the guy they want for the short term or the long term. On top of that, it's been pretty well reported that they haven't loved the options in free agency, including Sam Darnold. So Geno Smith is a player that I feel like is actually pretty undervalued and underrated. I think he's seen as like an average starter in the NFL for most people. He's had a Pro Bowl season under Pete Carroll's Seattle Seahawks. And I think he's one of the best pocket passers in the league in terms of that intermediate stepping up in the pocket, taking a hit to make a throw. The toughness is evident in his game, the accuracy. I mean, he is a guy that I could see Tom Brady really liking, right? Tom Brady is going to be influential in a lot of these Raiders decisions. I could see why this one made sense for him. They just made a move on the offensive line, Andre James. I think they're going to move their 2nd-round pick from last year, Jackson Powers-Johnson, to center. I think it's an underrated offensive line. They've got Brock Bowers. They need a wide receiver. Maybe at number 6, that's where they could go. But I think Geno Smith instantly elevates this team, instantly elevates their culture, because he is a great culture quarterback. He's a great leader. He's been through a lot throughout the course of his career. He's bounced back big from being a bust. So I love this move for the Raiders. For Seattle, just quickly, I feel like I'm a little lost. I don't think anybody in free agency will be the same quality as Geno Smith. And I understand that Geno maybe has not been overwhelmingly awesome the last couple of years in Seattle, and perhaps they wanted to move on. But I do feel like there were some things going the wrong direction there. The offensive line in Seattle has been horrendous, especially the interior, where you need it to be out of strength for Geno Smith and his game. Their run game has been inconsistent. Their defense has been inconsistent. And their offensive scheme is constantly switching and changing. So maybe that's the direction Seattle wants to go, is finding a quarterback that will better suit their current scheme. Now Kubiak comes in with McDonald on the defensive side, but it looks like Seattle is going to kind of undergo a little bit of a rebuild, so to speak. I don't think they're going to be able to bring in somebody. Maybe they go after Sam Darnold, and that would pretty much be an even swap, but I feel like they would have to pay more for him. So Seattle's interesting. I don't really know what they're going for there, but my instant reaction really with Geno Smith is that I love that move for the Raiders, and I think that's a great spot for him under Pete Carroll with Chip Kelly. That will be a lot of fun. But let's get to Aaron Rodgers, guys. Aaron Rodgers last season, I think, played better than people thought, right? He was the 18th graded quarterback in football last season, according to PFF, 14th in pass grade. Just to put a couple stats out there for you, his big-time throws were tied with Matthew Stafford, and he had more than Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, and Jordan Love. He had only 12 turnover-worthy plays, which was the 4th least in the NFL. That was only under Jaden Daniels and Tua at a percentage rate, okay, and Lamar. And he had the most drops in football with 39. He led the NFL in dropped passes by 8. Okay. So, yeah, he was 8th in completions. He was 8th in passing yards. He was 7th in touchdowns. He had a 28-11 touchdown interception ratio. Still plenty to like on the tape and on the stats when it came to Rodgers with the Jets last year. But the infrastructure for that team was a mess. So I feel like another year removed from the Achilles, Rodgers could be a really nice gamble, low risk, high reward in 2025. Let's break down the teams. Somebody says going to the Jags. I don't see that happening, bro. They've got Trevor Lawrence. Liam Cohen was brought in there to fix Trevor Lawrence. I appreciate your guys' comments, though. Keep them coming. Let's go. Let's begin with the team that I think is probably the most obvious, or the team that's most likely, let's say. That is the New York G-Men. The Giants, I feel, are the number one team for Aaron Rodgers. And that is mostly due to the fact that it's been the most reported. There's the most evidence backing Aaron Rodgers to the Giants. First of all, I feel like it's not very far to go if you're Aaron Rodgers, right? He just played for the Jets. He'd literally be going to the same facility, playing in the same stadium. So there's a lot to like there. Secondly, you have an offensive-minded coach, which he did not have in New York with the Jets. So you would have a little bit of an infrastructure in terms of a coach that understands the offensive side of the ball, that you can collaborate with and come up with the best offensive scheme for the skill set of Aaron Rodgers at his advanced age. Third, you already have a stud wide receiver named Malik Neighbors, who might become a top 10 receiver in football as soon as next year. You have a really underrated slot receiver in Wan'Dale Robinson, who's coming off his best season. You've got a young tight end in Johnson. You've got a young running back in Tyrone Tracy. And you've got a left and a right tackle combination that's, I would say, above average, with Andrew Thomas at left tackle and Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. They need a little bit of upgrading. Center, guard. That certainly could be better. Now, John Runyon is one of their guards. He is a former teammate of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Don't know if that helps at all, but it's very small. But they could use a little bit of an upgrade on the interior offensive line. They could use a lot of upgrade in their secondary, but they've got a really good pass rush led by Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. So I look at New York and I say location makes sense. Fit makes sense in terms of the offense, the weaponry. Maybe they could even bring in Devontae Adams to appease Aaron and to give him even more weaponry out there. And that would be easy for Devontae Adams, considering he just played for the Jets as well. So it would make a lot of sense. And then on top of all that, you have, okay, the Giants got the 3rd pick in the draft. They could pick a quarterback if they like, but they wouldn't have to with Aaron Rodgers. They could look at it as, if there's the quarterback we want at 3, we will take him and we will have him sit under Aaron Rodgers. But now that we've signed Aaron Rodgers, we don't necessarily have to be overly aggressive and trade up and pick our future quarterback. We can sit there and take the player that we want. Also, this would probably relieve Brian Daboll of the stress of having to win with a rookie quarterback right away. And it would probably put some pressure on him to win in a hot seat season with Aaron Rodgers, but it would give him the best chance, right? The low risk, high reward is evident with Aaron Rodgers. You can at least see the ceiling with Aaron Rodgers in New York. So that's why I like that landing spot for Rodgers. I think they could be competitive, although it's a tough division for sure. Okay, the next team, which I don't think is as likely as the Giants. I think this is one of the least likely teams on the list. It's the Tennessee Titans. And the reason I say they're not that likely is just because I look at the infrastructure of the team and the build of the team, and I don't really see why they would go with Aaron Rodgers, but let's break it down. So why would it make sense? Tennessee has been reported to not really want to pick a quarterback first overall. They want to take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or the gem of the draft, the best player in the draft. That is at least what's been reported most commonly, okay? They could still take Cam Ward and go about it that way. And they might actually be better off doing that to try to build around a young quarterback given their current infrastructure. They just released Harold Landry, like one of their veteran good football players. Not amazing or anything, but like a guy that if you were trying to win right now, you would probably keep him on your team. You know what I'm saying? So they got rid of him. The offensive line is good on the left. They've put a lot of resources in the left side of the line, right? 1st round pick at left tackle, 1st round pick at left guard, and a lot of money at center. Right guard and right tackle is a problem. They would have to fix that. They did put a lot of money in Calvin Ridley, money in the backfield with Tony Pollard. They've got Spears behind him, who's a really nice player as well. Okonkwo's an athletic tight end. So they don't really have a lot at receiver. That's an area that they would have to bring somebody in, multiple people in to fix that problem. Westbrook Akine is decent, but I feel like he's more of a 3 than he is a 2. Okay. It's the easiest division in football, which I think that is something that could be appealing to Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if you'd like Tennessee or what. I don't know about the location. I mean, I could see him there for sure. I feel like he fits it, but I don't know if he wants to go there. So that's something. But there's a flexible offensive coach who's worked with great quarterbacks in his past, like Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow. Callahan being a guy that's worked with different quarterbacks, pocket quarterbacks, guys that I feel like he's been able to mold his offense to different quarterbacks. So that might be appealing to Aaron, but he's never worked with Aaron personally. So that's something I don't think really necessarily operates that well. But it's the easiest division in football. It's probably the easiest one to walk in and win and fix your team in one season and take over. That being said, I still think the Texans are really good, but I feel like that's really the only team you're competing with in that division. Maybe Jacksonville, but I don't know. So I just don't know if Tennessee's ready for a veteran quarterback. Like, you look at their defense, and as admirably as they played last year, feels like they need a lot of fixing. You know, they'll need a safety. They might need a linebacker. They certainly need a pass rush at their edge position, right? And so I just think Tennessee is a little bit away from signing a veteran and going all in, but I could be wrong. I mean, if they do want to go with Aaron to just kind of see what Callahan can do with a proper, smart quarterback, then we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked by it. The next landing spot for Aaron Rodgers is maybe the most confusing in terms of why is this team not being tied to Aaron Rodgers more? Like, this would be the team, right? Silver Fox says Geno to the Raiders confirmed. Absolutely, man. That's a crazy move. Let me know what you guys think about that one. Steelers are the third team on the list. And this is the one where I'm like, okay, Pittsburgh Steelers, make it make sense why you would not want Aaron Rodgers. Let's break it down. All right. Last year, you went for a veteran quarterback named Russell Wilson. Okay. Low risk, high reward, right? You signed him to barely any money and you got to the playoffs. He actually played okay for you at times. You have a playoff draft pick. So you're nowhere near the conversation of getting a startable quarterback as a rookie this year. Okay. That's second. Russ is gone. You've already said you don't want him back. So you don't have a starting quarterback. Your defense is aging, but it's still really good. And you really have no free agents to speak of outside of your second corner and your nickel corner. Like the defense is pretty much complete. Like they have everybody returning. They have one of the best pass rushes in football. They have a promising linebacker duo in Queen and Wilson. They've got Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've got, a good infrastructure of a defense, a top 10 defense in the NFL. They've got a pretty good offensive coordinator that can create a running game really well. They've got a head coach in Mike Tomlin who's a future Hall of Fame coach, right? But yet he's on the hot seat because they can't find him a quarterback to work with. Okay. They have a number 1 receiver, but they maybe don't have a number 2, but I like Calvin Austin as a 3. They've got a pretty good tight end in Pat Freiermuth. They've got a young offensive line that is not great, but they're getting better. They're improving. So you could use some improvement at wide receiver, at corner, small areas. Why are you not going after a quarterback that gives you the prospect of being a contending team? Because I understand a lot of people look at Rodgers, and we just broke it down. Like, I think people look at him the wrong way. I feel like at the very least, Rodgers gives you upside. He gives you ceiling. He gives you an outcome of potentially a pretty awesome season, especially the second year after an Achilles. There could be so much improvement in terms of his lower body strength, his quickness, his mobility, his arm even, because his mechanics will be better and more confident. Like the ability to just throw the ball more reps, more times, practice, the chip on his shoulder that he'll have coming into this year. Like, why would the Steelers not want Aaron Rodgers? Why would they want to go with a Justin Fields? Like, I feel like we've seen enough reps from Justin Fields to say, like, okay, maybe he wins 8 to 10 games with the Steelers, but it's going to be pretty much the same experience we saw with Russell Wilson. They're going to have no ceiling. We've seen Aaron Rodgers win 4 MVPs. 4. So why can't we have Aaron Rodgers go to the Steelers with a great defense, with a pretty good running game, with Devontae Adams coming alongside George Pickens? Like, it just doesn't make sense why the Steelers are not that involved in this conversation. Maybe they'll go after Sam Darnold. Maybe, okay? But I just think the Steelers should be way more attracted to a veteran quarterback. So I have to put them on this list because they have all the elements of making this thing happen. It feels like they don't want to, which I'm very confused about. The 4th team on the list, Hot Mike says, Rodgers is going to ball out this year. He has a chip on his shoulder. It's very possible, which is why I'm bringing up these points, bro. It's very possible. It might not happen. It might fall flat on its face, but I'd rather have the possibility in Pittsburgh rather than no chance, no shot, okay? The Cleveland Browns are the next team on the list. I have to bring up Cleveland because they obviously need a quarterback to replace Deshaun Watson this year. And as much as we all want it to be Jameis Winston, it feels like it's not going to be Jameis Winston, right? But who will it be? They do have the 2nd pick in the draft, so maybe it could be that spot where they pick a quarterback. But will they be willing to pass up an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter to pick a quarterback that might not even be, a guy that they can have there long term? So it feels like they're going to go with a veteran player that's a little cheaper. Now, maybe that's a Kirk Cousins or something like that because he's being paid by Atlanta eventually. That could make some sense. But Aaron Rodgers in a Kevin Stefanski offense feels like home. It's not too dissimilar from the offenses he's played in, the Matt LaFleur offense, right? Like, there's a lot of similarities there. So I feel like Rodgers would probably produce in that system. And I think a big problem in New York, guys, was that he did not have a great offensive mind to collaborate with and to kind of hone him in and kind of keep him to just being the quarterback and not all these other things. Not the offensive coordinator, the offensive play caller, the GM. Felt like Rodgers had too much power in New York. But in Cleveland, you've got a strong offensive mind in Kevin Stefanski. You got a respected defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz. You have a defense that's consistently been in the top 10 the last couple of years. Sure, Myles Garrett could get traded. Okay, that's another 1st-round pick, another couple other picks, more cap space to work with for Cleveland, more assets to spend on this roster to make them better. You also think about, okay, the offensive line is a veteran unit. They're only getting older. I mean, you got guys that are good, Batonio, Teller, one of the best guard combinations in football, and Pochich. That's one of the best interior O-lines in the NFL. That's perfect for Aaron Rodgers. That's exactly what he needs with his limited movement right now. You've got Conklin on the right side who's getting older. They don't really have a left tackle. But like this roster, if you're thinking about it, they're kind of getting older. Their defensive line is getting older. Their secondary is getting older. So why would you not want to try to, because you built this team for Deshaun Watson, why would you not want to try to go for the aging quarterback rather than rebuilding it with a rookie? To at least give you a shot to do something in 2025, it feels like, right? So the entire defense is also signed, so they wouldn't really have to work on the defense. They would have to get a right tackle, or a left tackle, I should say. They'd have to bring in another receiver, but Jerry Jeudy had an excellent season last year. David Njoku is one of the best tight ends in football. They'd probably have to bring in a running back, but I mean, it's pretty manageable. Now, the thing with Cleveland is, do they have enough cap space to make all these things happen, to juggle all these elements? That's maybe a little bit difficult to figure out, right? They don't have the flexibility of a team like the Giants, a team like the Steelers. That's maybe the element that's missing. But I feel like when you look at their roster, they've got a veteran roster you would want to add a veteran quarterback to, and they have many of their holes filled on both sides of the football, especially at the line of scrimmage. So that's why I would say Aaron Rodgers with Kevin Stefanski. That'd be an intriguing matchup and dynamic in Cleveland. The next team, we got 2 more, and these are kind of outside the box, I guess, sort of, because both of them are not seen as Aaron Rodgers viable, but I feel like they are in certain scenarios. So the first is the Minnesota Vikings. This is also hilarious because if the Vikings end up signing Aaron Rodgers, it's basically Brett Favre 2.0. It's completing the Brett Favre career arc, which would be phenomenal. And it's almost funny because, like, have you guys ever realized that Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers almost have like the exact same career? I know that Brett Favre won 3 MVPs in a row and Aaron Rodgers had his MVPs. It basically, the difference is Aaron Rodgers has one more MVP than Brett Favre, and Brett Favre has one more Super Bowl appearance, but they pretty much have like the exact same like career. It's really odd. Anyways, I do think this would be hilarious, but it would also be a great fit for Aaron. I mean, he has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. They probably bring back Aaron Jones, which would be great for Aaron Rodgers because he loves Aaron Jones. And like, you've got all the weapons. You've got Kevin O'Connell, one of the best play callers, offensive minds in football. You got one of the best tackle combinations with O'Neal and Darisaw. They could sign a guard, okay? But the defense, you got Brian Flores. No worries about that. He could take scraps and make it a top 10 defense. Not worried about that. So, you've got a great infrastructure of coaching. You've got a contending team from last season. If they don't sign Sam Darnold and they still want a short-term option at quarterback because J.J. McCarthy isn't quite ready, all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers factors into Minnesota, right? Maybe Rodgers would even take less to play in that environment, take less to play on that team because he looks at that roster and is like, wow, okay, that's everything I need. That's everything I want, right? So that is a team where if Darnold leaves and they don't work out a short-term contract, 1 to 2 year deal, right? And J.J. McCarthy, they see, okay, he's still a little injured. He needs more time, or maybe he's just not quite looking like a starting quarterback for a team that thinks they can be a contender this year. That's a key element, right? I brought this up in other videos where it's like, this reminds me of the 49ers of the past couple of years where it's like, do we go with Trey Lance or do we go with Jimmy Garoppolo? Yeah, Lance has more potential down the road and could be the future of our team, but Jimmy G is better right now. You know what I'm saying? So that's the Aaron Rodgers situation where him in Minnesota would be a huge bounce back season potentially. And you could buy into that. Well, Brett Favre went to the Jets. He was okay. He was good, but it was a disappointing season. Then he went to the Vikings and it was an all-star team. He had Adrian Peterson, a really good offensive line, a really good defense, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He almost won MVP. So, just throwing that out there. And the final team to throw out there is the San Francisco 49ers for similar reasons, slightly different. Now, Aaron Rodgers, his childhood team was the 49ers. So what a better way to finish your career. This was the team I kind of wanted Tom Brady to go to, by the way, just throwing that out there for similar reasons. But I feel like Aaron Rodgers, if Brock Purdy holds out, if Brock Purdy does not take the contract that the Niners offer him, if Brock Purdy gets selfish and he decides for a year he's going to work on the farm, Aaron Rodgers could slip right in and play for his childhood team that didn't pick him first overall, and it would be a full circle storyline. The script writers would be absolutely on fire with this one, guys. Aaron Rodgers to the 49ers with the Super Bowl in San Francisco. Think about it. Think about it, okay? Then we've got Devontae Adams rumors to San Francisco. Throw that out there as well. We've got, one of the best teams over the last few years in the NFL, constantly getting the NFC championships. We have Kyle Shanahan working with Aaron Rodgers. Very similar offense, of course, to Matt LaFleur's, just slightly better probably. You've got Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, an aging team with Christian McCaffrey. They want to take advantage of this roster. And sure, they have maybe a couple more holes than they have recently, but it wouldn't take a lot for the 49ers to get right back to the NFC championship game. And I think many would even argue, I think you could look at Brock Purdy and Aaron Rodgers, and some people really like Brock Purdy, but I honestly feel like if Aaron Rodgers were there, I don't think the results would be all that different. I don't really, honestly. So, the fit for the offense is obvious. The thing would be, okay, is Brock Purdy going to play this year or not? And then so I think Aaron Rodgers would look at the Niners and want to sign there and want to play there, I think for obvious reasons. So that's why the 49ers are on the list. Full circle, man. Full circle. Let's get to the comments, guys. Let me know what you guys think about these landing spots. I saw someone bring up the Colts. The Colts are interesting. I don't know if they're going to go that direction because Anthony Richardson, I feel like, is going to get one more year to be their guy. And I think if you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, there's going to be so much pressure from the fan base, so much of a quarterback circus involved in this whole season and off season and build up. I just think it's going to be a little too much. I think they would prefer bringing in somebody that's like Jameis or something, just as an example. Like a good guy, like that will be a good teammate, can start if Richardson's a disaster, and probably in that offense would play really well. But they don't want like this huge name, like this guy that's just going to leave a shadow for Anthony Richardson, because I think they really want Richardson to be the guy. They're really trying one more time with Anthony Richardson, but that's at least where I stand, right? That's what I think. I do think the Colts do have a low-key good situation for a quarterback, though, and would for Aaron Rodgers. They've got underrated receiving talent. They've got a good running game, a good offensive coordinator, a good offensive line, a decent defense that they could build upon, and they've upgraded their defensive coordinator. So I feel like if the Colts did go that direction, I would actually probably applaud it. Because I'm not an Anthony Richardson guy, I just feel like looking from their direction, they spent the third pick on this guy. They're going to give him one more year because he was a project when he got drafted too. So just throwing that out there. Any other teams that come to mind? I'm not really sure. I mean, just thinking about, unless he I think he's going to sign almost, maybe not immediately, but would a team, let's say, in the middle of the year, if Aaron Rodgers for some reason decides not to sign with a team, like if Tua got hurt on Miami or something, maybe he would go to Miami. That's like a way out there sort of situation or team that could happen. The Raiders are now not an option. The Raiders were going to be a potential option. The Seahawks, I guess could be an option. I guess now that I think of it, they do need a quarterback. The offensive line needs a lot of work. I don't know if that would be ideal for Aaron. DK is also trying to get traded, so that's not great. But I do think their defense will be pretty good, especially year 2 in Mike McDonald's scheme. Would he want to play in Seattle? That's an interesting question. They really only have Jackson Smith and Jigba. Would they bring in Devontae Adams? They've got a good running back, multiple good running backs. They don't really have a tight end. They released Noah Fant. Their offense needs a lot of work. But I do think that the scheme, Kubiak is somebody that obviously kind of Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur style of scheme, like we talked about with Stefanski. So I feel like that would work from a scheme perspective. But I think they need a lot of work on the O-line, not a lot of work at receiver. This feels like a team that is kind of rebuilding this year, retooling this year. It's almost like Mike McDonald's been given the green light to kind of retool the team as he sees fit. And last year was kind of like the last push for them to do something with that core of a roster. Geno, DK, all those guys. Now it feels like DK could end up in New England or Los Angeles or something, and the whole team's getting scrapped. So yeah, Seattle's interesting. You'd have to throw them in here, kind of like the Titans, but I don't know if it's likely. I think the Giants are probably number 1 when you think about it and look at it. I think after that, the team that makes the most sense is the Steelers. I don't know if they're going to make that move. So if he doesn't sign with the Giants, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. He might have to be a free agent for a little bit. Maybe the Vikings would give him a call. We could complete that career arc. But that's what I got for you guys. Those are my landing spots for Aaron Rodgers. I'm excited to see where he lands, and I'm excited to see if he can play better than last season. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well. Thanks, guys, for watching. Like the video if you're on YouTube. Go over to the Bottom Line View and subscribe to my YouTube channel where I cover all 32 NFL teams. And we'll see you next time. Peace.